course, is the only member of this House who has no allegiance to either party, but to his country. He is supporting, as I've said, we need not ask who will be the first to show courage by standing up to President Trump.
No, I'm not going to.
The question,
what the flip, bro?
who will be the last
Bro!
to find it? The pages of our history are filled with Americans who had the courage to choose country over party or personality. But as President Kennedy wrote, the stories of past courage.
The fact that he hasn't sent in a letter of
They can
recognition
offer
yet.
hope. They can provide
That
inspiration.
he's not. Who do they know they're fucking
But
guilty?
they cannot
They send in the
supply
fucking, he'll resign.
courage
Because then it's
itself.
not an impeachment.
For this, President Kennedy said, each man, each woman must look into their own soul. I urge my fellow colleagues in the House and yes, in the Senate to
House
look
is
into
Republican, so is the
your
Senate.
soul. Summons the courage to vote for our Constitution and our democracy.
No, the Senate. I don't know what the
I
Senate
understand we will all
The
not
House
see
is
the same conclusion.
Majority Republican.
But to do less betrays our oath and that of our founders, who pledged their lives, their fortune,
Chico,
and their sacred
is
honor.
that your man? Come here.
No.
Chico.
Let us neither turn away from the evidence,
Evan, you need to come eat your dinner.
which to me seems
Where's
so
it?
Ethan, you're wasting your time.
conscious, which compels us to
Turn the
do
fucking phone off and you'll be done quicker.
we know to be right. Let us not allow the rule of law to end or for tyranny to find its toehold. With our votes today, we can bear true faith and allegiance to the vision of our founders.
Yes.
And we can show future generations what it truly means
No.
to be Americans.
I'm only taking one.
Vote yes.
Let's go.
Where?
Silence.
I can't.
What?
Can't.
Yeah, we can.
I'm in pajamas.
You want to come with me or no?
No.
This guy's a trip.
Madam Speaker, a few weeks ago, just off of this floor,
No, he's on his phone.
I said that a dark cloud was descending upon this body. And today, because of the clock and the calendar, it is closing. It is amazing to me what I just heard from the majority leader, that Mr. Schiff and Mr. Nadler presented a compelling case for impeachment. If this is a compelling case for impeachment, I'm not sure why we're here right now. It is not anywhere close to compelling.
It's spammer.
Interesting is what I have heard today. The majority leader just spoke and said that if the president was given every opportunity to come prove his innocence. I tell you what, Madam Speaker, let me have just a few minutes, stop the clock, and let me go around to the floor and everybody here, and I'm going to accuse you of something. You did it. You did it. You did it. You did it. Now prove it wrong. You did it. Guess what? You don't want to, because deep down you know that that's turning the entire jurisprudence of this country upside down. You're not guilty until you're proven. You're innocent. And today from this floor, we have heard the majority leader say this president is guilty and not the other way around. He is innocent, and these come nowhere close to proving it. But what is left of this body? Let's have an honest conversation, Madam Speaker. What we have found over the past few weeks is that it's okay for the majority to tear down a foreign leader because they can't make their case. They've called him a liar,
No.
or as it's called in the committee, even look like a battered wife. He is below the dignity of this body and this majority to tear down a foreign leader because they can't make a case against this one.
They really want me to hate this game.
We have broken rules in this House, even to this moment. Chairman Schiff and the others have broken House Resolution 660 by not turning over the things that they should be turning over. I still have not got a transcript. We still don't know what we got in the White House. Still has not got their stuff. I guess minority hearing rule days don't matter either. You see, there is a problem here, because we're going to vote this tonight while breaking the rules. What a shameful incident. But we also found a creative interpretation of minority rights. We saw the rise of partisanship because of things that have been done even further. And we've even seen members smeared in the reports by drive-by political hacks when they match numbers of the majority of the ranking member and the members of the press. That ought to concern every one of you as much as it concerns every one of us. Nothing but a drive-by hit. But you know something? This majority leader also just said, wherever law ends, tyranny begins. But I will say this, in this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule actually begin, and the majority is taking that to a new level. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority saying, be damned with anything else, we're going to impeach and do whatever we want because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority, and it ain't gonna be that fun. Because when you look
Good
at it,
chest.
when you actually trash the rules of this house, you want to really look at what did you gain at the end by trashing the institution you claim to love. That's the things we found out so far. But you know, they're really careful of saying, oh, you want to deal with process and process. As I said last night in the Rules Committee, where they didn't want to listen, I'll win on process, and I will win on facts because we have the truth on our side. Let me remind you that here's what the process actually says. There was no pressure. Look at the call. President Zelensky, President Trump, no pressure. There was no conditionality. There was nothing done to get the aid, and the aid actually came. There were 5 meetings. But when you look at it right now, none of which matter. Because right now the dark cloud is descending upon this house. And I am fearful, Madam Speaker. When I look out in that abyss, I don't know what I see. But I tell you what I do see. I see coming off a president who will put his head down even through this sham impeachment, and he will do his job. He will put the American people first. He will tell them that I care about you. He will still put the economy first, and he will make sure this country stands strong. That's what I see in this abyss. That's where we're going. And Madam Speaker, it is with that hope in the future that I recognize right now that I yield 1 minute to the Republican leader of this House, the Republican from California, Mr. McCarthy.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, I must warn you, I'm about to say something my Democratic colleagues hate to hear. Donald J. Trump is President of the United States.
They'll address him as the president, but they won't address him as the president of the United States.
He is president today, he'll be president tomorrow, and he will be president when this impeachment is over. Madam Speaker, when they accept that, maybe this House can get back to work
I don't
for the
know what the
American
Speaker
people.
of the House is.
Tonight I rise,
Speaker of the House is
not
Nancy
as the
Pelosi,
leader of the
isn't it?
opposition to this impeachment, or as the elected representative from the Central Valley of California. I rise as Kevin McCarthy, citizen, no better, no worse than the 435 representatives that are in this chamber, or the 330 million Americans watching this institution make what I believe to be one of the worst decisions we have ever made. It doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whether you're liberal or you're conservative, whether you're the first generation or the 10th. At our core, we are all American, all of us. We choose our future.
No, this is
We
mine.
choose what kind of nation we want to be.
Watch.
Here
It
in
doesn't
this
pay everybody.
race tonight.
As soon as their minute's up, that's it.
Will we let impeachment
cut them off.
become an exercise of
just talk
raw
right over them.
political power,
It's kind of funny.
regardless if it damages our country? Or will we protect the proper grounds and process for impeachment now and in the
It's a
future?
long minute.
For months, Democrats and many in the media have attempted to normalize the impeachment process that would remove a duly elected president from office. After 3 years of breathless and baseless outrage, this is
He
their
did say
last
1 minute,
attempt
didn't he?
to stop the Trump presidency. Madam Speaker, Speaker Pelosi even recently admitted that Democrats have been working on this impeachment for 2.5 years. Those were her words. They were not mine. Because they lost to him in 2016, they'll do anything or say anything to stop him in 2020. That's not America. That's not how democratic republics behave. Elections matter. Voters matter. And in 11 months, the people's voice will be heard again. Impeachment is the most consequential decision Congress can make other than sending our men and women into war. Yet 85 days ago, Speaker Pelosi chose to impeach the President of the United States. She wrote the script and created an artificial timeline to make the details fit. Why else are we doing this just hours before Christmas? If that's all it was, a rush to judgment, she could be forgiven. But before the Speaker saw one word or one shred of evidence, she moved to impeach. In the past, in this body, such a step demanded a vote from all of us from the start. But not only did she move to impeach before she gave this House and the hundreds of millions of people we represent a say in whether to pursue an impeachment inquiry, she threw out the bipartisan standards this House gave President Nixon and Clinton. That is why I immediately sent Speaker Pelosi a letter asking her to follow the rules of history, of tradition, and follow those standards that have served America well. What did she say? She rejected it. She rejected it because Democrats knew a fair process would crumble their case. A fair process would have exposed to the American public what many already knew. Democrats have wanted to impeach President Trump since the day he was elected. And nothing was going to get in their way, certainly not the truth. Madam Speaker, Chairman Schiff said he had evidence, more than circumstantial, of collusion. That was false. In January, where we all stood in this body, we stood up, we raised our hands, we swore that we'd uphold the Constitution. And a few mere hours after that, Congresswoman Tlaib said she was going to impeach the mother effer. Those are not my words.
Did he? Oh, he's rude.
A year before taking the majority, Chairman Nadler campaigned to the Democrats that he wanted to be chairman of the Judiciary Committee where impeachment is. New York Times writes, Madam Speaker, because he is the strongest member to lead a potential impeachment. And Congressman Haskell, a leading Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, one that the Democrats had represented in the Rules Committee for these articles just yesterday, told the crowd he would impeach President Trump 2 days before he was ever sworn into office. What we've seen is a rigged process that has led to the most partisan and least credible impeachment in the history of America. That is this legacy. Any prosecutor in this country would be disbarred for such blatant bias, especially if that prosecutor was the fact witness, the judge, and the jury. Madam Speaker, Democrats haven't just failed on process, it's also failed on evidence. I've heard a lot of debate on this floor today. But I haven't heard one member of this body dispute this simple fact. President Trump provided lethal aid to Ukraine. It came before the call, it came after the call, and it continues to this day. President Trump provided Ukraine tank-busting bombs. The previous administration, they gave blankets. This is the truth. Meanwhile, the Democrats' case is based on second-hand opinions and hearsay. Simply put, there are no grounds for impeachment. As constitutional scholar Jonathan Turley, and I would challenge to say he's probably the most respected, and we all know it, a Democrat who did not vote for the president, said under oath, there was no bribery, there was no extortion, no obstruction of justice, and no abuse of power. Based on the facts, based on the truth, based on the lack of evidence, Turley called this the fastest, thinnest, and weakest impeachment in the U.S. history. Such a definitive answer should be the end of all of this. But Speaker Pelosi is still moving forward with this impeachment, without evidence of facts, or truth, or public support. The Speaker says it is out of allegiance to our founders. On this, I agree. I agree with the Speaker we should listen to the founders. And if one does, it's very clear that this impeachment is unfounded and improper. In the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton wrote, there would always be the greatest danger that impeachment would be driven by partisan animosity instead of real demonstrations of innocence or guilt. That impeachment would be driven by partisan animosity instead of real demonstrations of innocence or guilt. James Madison, another author of the Federalist Papers, wrote, the danger of legislative abuse must lead to the same tyranny as is threatened by executive abuse. The founders did not want impeachment to be used for political or partisan battles.
Love on her.
If my colleagues do not want to follow the constitutional high standards for undoing a national election, perhaps you could have followed Speaker Pelosi's standard, at least the one she promised to follow back in March. It was a very sensible standard. She says impeachment is so divisive that the evidence must be overwhelming, compelling, and bipartisan. Not one of those criteria have been met today. Based on the facts, based on the evidence, based on the truth, this impeachment even fails that Pelosi test. I understand you dislike the president, his beliefs, the way he governs, and even the people who voted. How do I know this? Because you say so day in and day out. In 2016, they even dismissed his supporters. Remember calling us deplorables? Now they are trying to disqualify our voice before the 2020 election. not leadership. That is wrong political politics, and you know it. By refusing to acknowledge the truth or follow the facts, by substituting partisan animosity for real demonstration of innocence or guilt,
Chico.
and by continuing a 3-year effort to undermine the president, this impeachment has divided this nation without any concern for the
Chico. No.
Moreover, politicizing this process has discredited the United States House of Representatives and could forever weaken the remedy of impeachment.
You're going to fall off the top.
To again quote Professor Turner,
Chica isn't.
it is the Democrats' rush to impeachment on these grounds with unfair procedures that is an abuse of power. History will write that. Madam Speaker, as I said at the beginning, we face a choice. Do you trust the wisdom of the people, or do you deny them a say in their government? Fortunately, people will have the opportunity to speak up and raise their voice in 11 months to my fellow Americans. To my fellow Americans, if you approve of the way of this House has conducted their business, if you want to see your tax dollars go forward to endless investigations, support this impeachment. But if you want to restore a working Congress that listens to you and work to bring the best economy in this country has ever seen,
Airdrop is coming. Airdrop is coming.
He's such a
Film
fucking
them in
liberal.
their entirety. They will be
Kimmel.
live. We hope you
He's
will agree
bad.
that they are rolling today as they were.
Yeah, it's live. Like that's what we used to do. That's why there was never a lot of scene adjustment. Everything was like in house. Like the Jeffersons and all that shit.